my dad, Lucius Hedgspeth Sr. He's known throughout as Bob Jack. Everyone referred to him as Bob Jack. So lots of time you speak with someone about your dad as Lucius, they don't know who you're talking about. But he was a stand-up dad, one of a kind. He was loved singing. He loved his family. His motto was, "The family that prays together stays together." He actually had that verse on the front of his car for many, many years. And he spent lots of time with us, mostly in church and singing, either rehearsal or in church. Started at a young age when we were, just small kids. He'd always have us sing during church service. We'd do it a cappella or maybe by piano. When I say young, I was too young to even hardly remember. I believe Stanley said he was about 6 years old, the best he could remember. So he's got me by a year, so I guess I was around 5. But to progress forward, we did so many years, not really wanting to. We had to be progged and tugged to get up there lots of times, but as we grew older, we began to appreciate singing. We traveled all over with my dad, North Carolina, and maybe some lower parts of Virginia and South Carolina, just as a family. And when he was singing with the True Lights, was my best memory of where he started. But as I grew, I found out he started long before that, when he was a teenager. He started with a group called the Golden Sons, I believe was one of the groups. And then in the next group I remember was the True Lights, and he was a True Light all his life. They met with some of the groups, some of the legendary groups like the Blind Boys or Lou Ross and what was it, Soul Stirrers, Pilgrim Travelers. I think that was the time he met Sam Cooke before he was gone. The Clouds of Joy, they was not traveling with them, but meeting up on programs with these groups. And I think that's a testament about their song and their voices. They were a pretty strong, popular group to be local. But it's unfortunate none of them ever really advanced out. The technology, the contacts, the finances or the know-how was, so they never really got bigger than local or semi-local. So I think in today's time, they could really be legendary, just like some of the other groups that was able to record early in the years.
That was the song that my dad wrote years ago. It was Mother Bowed and Prayed for Me. But during the time, there wasn't no copyrights. So I think one of the groups, I should call it a name, I think the Blind Boys put it out. They sung it in South Carolina. They come back and say about 6 months to a year later, they heard the Blind Boys singing it. So back then it was legal to do that. So
they never got any credits.
They never recorded anything. Back during that time, there wasn't a lot of recording during that time. So the members to begin with was Matthew Wade, my dad, Lucius Hedgespeth, we called him Bob Jack, and that was Ben Bass and brother D.C. Parker. And years earlier, that was Donnell Parker, Palmer Harris,
Lee Cates,
and Pete Jacob. Is that what they call it? 2 older brothers. They sang with them.
But they sang as the True Light Travelers.
Yes, they did.
It was, I guess they were barely beyond teenagers, I guess. It was Dad, my older brother, Lucius Jr., we call him June. There was Wallace and my brother-in-law, Edgar Outlaw. They sung as the True Light Travelers. And all the time, the True Lights were still going on. So they were going to some of the same places, so they were the True Light Travelers. So just a different group altogether. Dad just loved to sing with the boys, and they became, they said, well, we'll just be the True Light Travelers, to have a different name so they wouldn't be confused with the True Lights, right? So they went on for a while, and as I think back through the years, and had mostly forgotten it, we've sung in all different arrangements. There were the family choir. People would send a letter, want the family to come, and which it included the wives, the sisters, and the grandkids. Lisa and the Rev would all go out as a choir. Even before Lisa was here, we were doing so. And then there was one group. It was my sister Mary Outlaw now. It was Arlene Hedgspeth, Wallace's wife, and who was the other? Oh, and my sister Janice Hester. They were sang as a group. They were the Hedgspeth Sisters, and I thought they were fantastic. But for some reason, it just didn't stick with them. They would do it when they were invited somewhere, but they didn't just work at it. But they were fantastic when they were singing in their prime. And so, and I can remember the years that when Wallace started singing more professional level with the Gospel Supremes or whatever, and my dad, my oldest brother Lucius, Stanley, and myself, we started singing, or kept singing. Sometimes my sister Janice would sing with us. Even Lisa sometimes would come lead with us. Lisa seems that you've been around so long, I believe you about as old as I am. She seems like a sister instead of a niece.
She played drums and keyboard with us from time to time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was interesting, the way most of the grandkids came up on instruments before singing. Lisa and piano and drums. Janice's daughter was piano. Of course, they came on. This is great nephew. They came up with instruments, and I think Wallace probably was a good part of that, inspiring the instrument, because he was the first one to start an instrument. But Dad, by far, was the one that was the inspiration for singing. And we spent many nights standing around his dining room on a piano and singing as a choir or as a quartet or before service. I can remember many times we would go out and we would sing a cappella. I think early on that was one of Wallace's favorite way to sing. Yeah. We would go out and even when we was younger, we would go out and people would call us up to sing. We wouldn't be prepared, but we would just go up and do a cappella, or go in the back room and run through the song and come back out and do it. I remember most of those times, because it seems there were so many programs all the time. There was church service, and then there was always somewhere to go. Sunday evening, Sunday night. That was the entertainment. We didn't have the stallion clubs back in the day, I don't guess. So it was always at some anniversary or at the Armory in Durham or someplace all the time, until in the later years after the Gospel Supremes. I think I took a hiatus. Excuse me. I was gone a lot, and Stanley and my older brother Lucius, they had a group out of Apex, the Constellations. They were there for how many years?
I was there for 15 years. In June, my older brother was there for 17 years. We sung with the Constellations out of Apex.
Y'all did several recordings too.
Yeah, we recorded. We got 2 recordings that we recorded. And we traveled a lot, South Carolina, in Baltimore and Philadelphia. We traveled right much with that group.
When we got back together as Hedgespeth Brothers, my brother Wallace had a notion to record, and that's when we really started singing on a regular basis.
My dad and Wallace really started that. And Wallace was the first one recorded. We recorded with him. Wallace was an inspiration. Wallace wrote the songs, and we just come in and recorded them. And that's really what started the Hedgespeth Brothers.
Yeah. And Dad always wanted to sing with family. That's what he wanted to do.
That's true.
And he was always encouraging and pushing, and he was always there to do his part. I mean, he was, if you want him to lead, if you wanted the background, if you wanted to sit out a song, it didn't matter to him. I think he got about as much joy out of seeing us sing as he did singing, although he loved it. And my mom, Lorene, she was happy she could be just to sit in the audience and watch.
She was,
and she was never pushy.
My grandfather, Lucius Sr., Hedgespeth Sr., Bob Jack, as everybody called him, he really instilled singing in all of us when we were younger. His house was just down the street here, and there was a piano there, and we would all get around the piano, and they have us practicing. Grandpa and my daddy would drive rehearsals. I mean, they really made us rehearse. So I guess that's how all of us just broke out into singing. We had the family group, the Hedgespeth family, as a choir. So we would go out on different programs too, singing. And then, of course, like you said, the True Lights and the True Light Travelers, and then the Hedgespeth Brothers, and the Hedgespeth Sisters. My aunts and my mother, they were really good. They, I remember them singing this song, "I'm Sweeping Through the City," a cappella, and they would really tear into a program. But Grandpa just really, he was such a good, humble person and so kind, and his voice was just amazing. And a lot of people really loved to hear him sing. And like I said, I guess he just really instilled in my uncles and my aunts and all of us to, to sing. And some of us played instruments. My dad played bass and lead, and I played keyboards. And I did do just a little bit of drumming. That wasn't much. But it wasn't much, just enough to keep the beat sometimes. But then, my sons, they came along and they play instruments. So like I said, Grandpa's just really instilled in us, and my grandma, she was just so sweet and humble. And it did make her so happy when we would sing, because we would just go over there sometimes, and all of us would, even during Christmas, we'd just break out singing, and I'd have to get on that piano. They would make me get on that piano. But yeah, and my dad and my Aunt Janice were really good songwriters, very good songwriters. And that spawned off on my youngest son, Quincy. He's really good at songwriting too. That wasn't my thing. But yeah, the family, we've always been really close. All of us right here grew up around together. So we were just, like I said, always close and always singing.
And I want to add one thing to my father. He could sing every part.
Yes.
In the background and lead.
Mm-hmm.
He could do it all.
Yes, he could.
And his ear for music, his ear Janice, and Wallace. They could pick out who was off or who wasn't in tune. I mean, right during singing, the song stopped. They said, you need to be here, you need to be there, you need to be there. I mean, it's amazing the ear they had for music and the keys they had. And actually, all three of them could sing any part that they needed to sing. Or there was plenty of times where they would change right in the middle of a song if they saw a gap. It was just, I never really understood how they had such a ear for music. And it was a real honor to sing with our dad for so many years.
Yes.
He lived for 96 and a half years, almost 97 years. And I say he was a blessed man. He was staying by himself. We had to start doing his driving in the later years, in his mid-90s for him and all. But I like to make a joke. My wife and I was talking the other day is that he died with his own teeth.
That's true.
He could see. He could hear without a hearing aid. I mean,
Had hair.
And it wasn't on any medication, not anything. Yeah. Never been on medication.
And he was still going. And the day, the Sunday before he passed on a Monday night, he led singing in the choir at church that Sunday morning. And that Monday, he was talking with his friends and my sister and someone else. It may have been Ann over at the house. He was sitting at the table laughing and talking and joking. And we left, I don't know, 6, 7 o'clock. But just to go back, that Monday morning, my sister's always there at 5, Tuesday morning. And he was in his last state. But he lasted another week. But the day that he passed, we were all sitting around singing songs that he liked, praying for him. And we were all hands on him when he took his last breath. And it was, I like to think that God took the sting out of death. It wasn't painful anymore. Because I think he was ready to go on and be with Mom.
My dad, outside of the family group, I know he sang with the Gospel Supremes out of Roxborough with David Ramsey and James Lunsford, Michael Whitfield, and I think Stacy Pettiford came in too. Later on, Marshall Johnson came in.
I love the name. How I love the name. How I love the name of the Lord. How I love the name. How I love the name. How I love the name of the Lord. Jesus is the name. Jesus is the name. Jesus is the name of the Lord. Jesus is the name. Jesus is the name. Jesus is the name of the Lord.
And I know he also started a group Just Us Guys with Reverend Mac Pettiford and James Lunsford's children, and David and James were in there as well. I don't think he did any other groups as far as
What about Mac Van Hook and Teresa?
Oh yeah, I can't believe I forgot that, the Angelic Supremes, because I sang in that and I forgot all about that. Yeah, we did that. That was a really popular group. They were big sticklers for uniform. I mean, Teresa had us, we had to have on the same bracelets, the same earrings, our stockings had to be the same, shoes, everything. They were really sticklers for that. But that's another group he was a part of. And then, he just kind of helped around at different churches, choirs and stuff, male courses and stuff. A lot of people called on him to help with different things. I think they had a thing at Clegg's Chapel, some kind of production, and they had him, handling all the music and stuff.
He and I sung with Siloam's Church choir.
Yeah.
And I went with him to Red Mountain. We sung with the Red Mountain Choir. He played and sang, and I sung with him too.
It was amazing. We could go to a church service, and he would play either lead or bass behind almost every group that comes up. They'll ask them to join in to play. And even when he wasn't playing, he was always getting called to either play for this church or come and sit in, or program a group, call him, ask him to come go with us. The one thing that I know that always bothered him, he got to make sure that they were practiced, that they practiced together. He did not like to go anywhere without any rehearsal. He was just, as Lisa say, he was a stickler. I mean, he would stop you 5 times doing a song to get one verse right. But he just, he wanted to be as close to perfect as could be. His saying was, you're doing the program now, so when we get to the church, you just sing, do what you did in practice. That was the way he felt about it.
In the storms of life are raging, Lord, stand by me.
My kids were really young when the Bradley started. I want to say Quincy might have been 4 or 5, and he was maybe 7 or 8. And we were actually just riding in the car. They were in the back seat, and I started singing this song, and I said, what did I say, son? I said, y'all get in here with me. I mean, it was just really amazing. They just jumped right in, and it was just 3-part harmony just out of nowhere. I was so shocked, and Daddy would tell that story a lot. I was so shocked. I called Daddy on the phone and I said, you will not believe this. The kids are singing with me and they're just harmonizing. And he came down to my house, and he started singing, and we all just jumped right in. It was just unbelievable that they were that young and was harmonizing like that. So that's kind of how, I'm not sure if Daddy just said, let's call it the Bradleys. Maybe so, because it was already a Hedgespeth part. So yeah, that's pretty much how that started. And then we had the idea of recording, and we went and recorded our first CD. I think the kids were only maybe 6, Quincy was. And Quincy had a really high-pitched voice. He could sing top. And both of them now can sing all 3 parts too. And they have really strong ears, like my uncle said, for hearing what's wrong and what's right, the notes and everything, So that's pretty much how the Bradley started. And we traveled a little bit more. We did. We traveled a little bit more. Probably had more opportunity at the time than they did back in earlier days. But so we sung with a lot of professional groups. And like I say, went around to different states and stuff. And we did 3 CDs. Our first CD was More Like Him. And our second CD was Thankful. And then the last one was our Christmas CD. Jackson Russell was our producer. And I think he also produced the Hedgespeth Brothers. And His family is real talented too. So yeah, that's pretty much how the Bradley started, and it was just amazing. I think it was really popular at the time because the kids were so little and could sing like that. So people, wherever we would go, Don McKenzie, Miss Spencer Taylor from the Howard QCs, he was like, I can't believe these little boys can sing like this. So, but that all started from Grandpa and my daddy. And like my uncle say, he drilled practice in us. And it was hard with them being in school. They didn't want to practice. So that was like pulling teeth, but we did good. And so that was my daddy's dream. He just loved singing, and I always pushed his brothers and pushed us to sing and record and stuff. And I just want to add, the last time my daddy sang was at New Harris Grove. Just Us Guys was there, wasn't it, y'all?
Yeah.
Just
Us Guys, and
Revival.
yeah, exactly. And we all, my son came that time, and he was traveling at the time, but he came, and my youngest son was in college at A&T, but he came down, and we just all, it was a beautiful October day, and we were all, saying that we were going to, go to this revival and support. It was on a Friday night. And we were all just having a good time. My daddy was up there singing. And the last song he sung was Cloudy Day, Uncloudy Day, the hymn Uncloudy Day. And I noticed when he went out to tell my son goodbye because he had to go to a gig. He just looked like he didn't feel good. I don't know. When he came back in, he sat down on the side, didn't go back in the choir stand. And just after the service, he just came to me. He was saying he didn't feel good or whatever. But that was the night that he passed, right there at the church where we all started at, But he was doing what he loved. His brothers was there. My mom was there. We all were there. So everybody was around that he cared about. And so when he passed where he started and doing what he loved. Yeah, it was tough, but just so unexpected. But
If I could just add something to that. Mm-hmm. That day he was just different.
Yeah.
He had his suit on, I was new or what, but he didn't care much for a necktie, but he was dressed at night. He had the guys he loved to sing with it, and his best friend ever for as long as I can remember, David Ramsey, was there singing with him. All of the family was there. His grandkids and all came by just to say they'd come by to help him with his the opening of the revival, and then they left, which was a good thing. And after he went out, Stanley, I think, helped him out of the choir stand. He wasn't feeling good. And he sat outside in the fellowship hall, just in the fellowship hall. And all the ministers come out and they laid hands on him and prayed for him. We all were there praying for him. And he stood up and he says, well, I'm all right now. Says, I'm ready to go. And we walked down the step down the ramp. And he just stepped 1 foot on earth. As soon as he stepped off the pavement, he went down on his knees and never breathed another breath, said another word. It was just like, boom. And we worked on him for probably 30 minutes. The rescue squad came that was friends of his that knew him well. They worked, they gave him several shots, but nothing ever made a difference. God had already summoned him. And we were there just at the revival, and friends from all around showed up just that quick. From Roxborough, from Bahama, around Durham, they were there before we even took them away. But it was, as I reflect back over it, as hard as that was, I think God was preparing him. My older brother, Lucius, he went through a lot of sickness in his end years. And I can remember Wallace saying that, I hope I don't have to do that. My older brother fought hard, but he finally come to his illnesses. And I missed him, but it was only 2 years later before Wallace left us. And 2 years before Lucius left, Dad left. 2 years after Wallace left, my brother Stanley's wife, Sula, left us. So it was years there that it get easier over time. And as you reflect back over the times that we had together, you treasure them even more. And you thank God, but I believe every one of them is walking with God today. And and they probably singing up there. He's probably telling us, so how about you singing low on this one? You out of tune. But one thought I heard about, I thought about Lisa's kids. They were all just so talented as they came up. But the earliest I remember was Quincy was 5 years old. Melissa Wade over at Channel 103, I think at 103.9, she would always promote the Martin Luther King Day over in Raleigh. And she would invite Quincy, and he was a little 5-year-old. He'd get up and do his solo. I mean, and he did it well. He just didn't, it was singing like a grown-up back then.
He wasn't scared at all.
No, he wasn't. Nope. And still right today, he still does it. When time for him to do something, he do it. He do it well.
I forgot about that Melissa Wade thing. It was at the Progress Energy Center in Raleigh. And it was really big. You're right. It was packed in there. And he was a little bitty thing, came out there and sung Stand by Donnie McClurkin. And he had the whole place. He started crying in the middle of the song. It was the spirit. It wasn't fear. He was feeling the spirit at that age. And Melissa was like, I remember her saying, is he crying? And she came out there and she got a little emotional, but everybody was just like praising. I forgot about that. Quincy was always really, Tyrik liked to be in the background. Even when we would sing, he'd be backing up and Dad would be like, come out, Tyrik, come out. And he didn't care a lot for the spotlight. And he still doesn't, even with all the things he does, he still kind of likes to be in the background. Quincy was just really bold, would step out there and sing, and he still does. He's actually made a couple of EP releases, right? And he produced, Tyrik produced them. So, like I say, all that talent just, came out from Grandpa on up. And I wanted to go back to what my uncle was just saying about my dad, because I hadn't told I was going to tell all of that, but I didn't know if I should. But it was like destined that day that everybody was there. Even when we left home to go to the church, my dad said, he went in there to give my mom a kiss. I said, well, why are you giving her a kiss? You're just going right up the road and she's going to come right up there too. And he said, we always do this. So he gave her a kiss and he was going out. And I said, well, what about me? And he came back and he made a joke. He always did. And he said, you just always been something else. And he gave me a kiss too. And I just feel like all of that happened for a reason, and when he was at the church, like he said, how he just collapsed like that. I saw him when he collapsed. I was looking right at him. And I just kind of knew that just wasn't a regular fall. You could tell everything was limp. So, like he say, it was tough, but at least he sung that song, Uncloudy Day, and that went right along with what, they tell me of a home far away, And so... And he was dressed up. I remember my uncle actually turned around to me at the church and said, look at my brother. He is dressed up. He's we still had that necktie, and because he did not like wearing neckties.
And he had on shoes and they were tied up.
Yes, he did.
And I remarked to him about it. I said, "You mighty clean tonight. What you got in mind?" And for real, he just laughed.
He was dressed up that night. He really was.
Because dressing was not his first interest.
He liked to wear casual stuff. He did
And I
not
would like to add a
dress
little
up.
something to that. When he when he finished singing the song at church that night, he gave me his guitar, looked me right in my eyes, just looked right at me like I was a stranger, said, "Take my guitar to the truck for me. I don't feel too good." And that's the last words I heard him say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was just 5 years this past October so it hasn't been very long. My mother still really has a hard time. We all do.
If you trust in the Lord, He'll make a way. If you trust in the Lord, He'll make a way. If you trust in the Lord, He'll make a way. He'll make a way for you. If you trust in the Lord, He'll make a way. If you trust in the Lord, He'll make a way. If you trust in the Lord, He'll make a way. He'll make a way for you. I heard people talk, they say God ain't real, but I can tell the world where I would say God ain't real. What to do? Just put a little trust in Jesus. I know He will see you through. Trust in the Lord, you make a way. If you trust in the Lord, you make a way. If you trust in the Lord, you make a way. You make a way for you. I came to Jesus.
And Tyrik was really close to my daddy. He taught him how to play guitar.
My grandpa definitely, got me started on everything. I remember my first toy being a guitar, and I remember running behind him with the Gospel Supremes to all the programs and just watching him play. And he instilled a lot in me, just outside stuff that's outside of music that helped me today, from being on the road and stuff, just like, how to say no to drugs. And we had plenty of talks. I used to call him when I used to do certain shows. I'll call him after every show just to talk to him, let him know, what was going on and how everything went. And even now, I do be missing him. I wish I could, call him and, talk to him after the shows I've done. Because, with everything that happened, it being so suddenly, it just kind of messed me up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? But, he was all about rehearsal. And I feel like that's how I am. I know I got that from him, because even with me being on the road and stuff like that, we would have like 12-hour rehearsals, 13-hour rehearsals, and we may be on one song for like 5 hours. And it didn't bother me at all. You know what I'm saying? Because he loved to rehearse. So I know for a fact I got that from him. And then sometimes I wish I can call him and let him know how long those rehearsals be, because he would love to hear that. Like, now when I was younger, I used to think like we used to rehearse for 3 hours and it used to feel like 2 weeks. But now when we rehearse now and we own one song for 5 hours and we getting like maybe a 15-minute break and we right back to the same song. Like, I love rehearsing now, you know. So I appreciate, you know, him being tough on us and letting me know how important rehearsal is, because rehearsing for 12, 13 hours and you get out there and you in front of 50,000 people and you don't have to worry about, you know, looking to the next person and trying to figure out what's coming up next. You already know. You can play the song in your sleep. So I feel like rehearsing is very important, and I'm glad that, you know, I come from a family that was big on rehearsing and making sure you right before you walk out, because it's really important. You know, I mean, it's been situations where I didn't get to rehearse. I was playing with T.I. in Vegas. They had sent me the music. They told me to learn it, and it was a YouTube link. So like I say, it goes back to, you know, preparing. This was my time to rehearse on my own, which is, you know, I was disciplined enough to know that, okay, if I'm not going to be able to rehearse with them, I need to rehearse to myself. So I went over the show. I was probably in there rehearsing to myself for like 5 hours. They sent me, like I say, it was a YouTube link, so I had to learn it from a YouTube link. And when I got there, you know, they couldn't tell. Like, they was like, yo, this dude came out here and just killed the show with no rehearsal. You know, and that goes back to my grandpa. If I would have told him that I'm not going to be able to rehearse with them, he would have been like, well, you need to go in there and get on it on your own. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Handle it on your own. Make sure you know, because your first impression is your only impression. So if you go out there and bomb, they ain't going to call you again. But if you go out there and do your thing, they're going to be like, yo, this dude, you rehearse to himself. You know, we commend that. You know what I'm saying? So that goes back to him letting us know how important it is to rehearse and prepare. So when you step out, you on point. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Well, I've played with a lot of people. T.I.'s one, Kodak Black, Faith Evans. I just got off tour with Machine Gun Kelly and Ian Dior. It's a crazy world out there. And like I say, for my grandpa again, if he wouldn't have had to talk with me about, you know, knowing how to say no to drugs and stuff like that, I probably wouldn't be sitting right here right now. Or I probably would have been messed up in my career, because I didn't see all of that. Like, you know, people doing weird stuff and endless amount of women just being around you. And it could be a big distraction. But as long as you strong up here and coming from a family, you know, that got a strong foundation, and, you know, we know what to do and what not to do. You know, I feel like I've handled that stuff pretty good. I mean, I've been around a lot of people and celebrities and stuff like that. So it can really get crazy. And as long as you know how to handle yourself and long as your mind is strong, you know, it's cool. Because I've had a lot of weird encounters, you know, with a lot of different people, a lot of different energies, and it can get crazy. And if you, like I say, if you don't have a strong mind, you can easily get caught up in that world.
Mm-hmm. Plus, you still have your church connection.
Yeah, I still have my church connection too. So,
right.
Yeah. Well, I was in Clegs when I was younger, playing keyboard. Aki and all of them, Antoine, Frank, we all came up together playing there. All of us were talented, and all of us, you know, built up around each other, like bounced ideas off of each other. So I always felt like that was a good thing, to have like-minded people around me and around each other to, you know, bounce ideas off and create, you know, certain sounds and certain, you know, ideas and stuff like that. So I feel like Clegs was definitely a good church, you know, as far as building up musicians. And Cynthia did a really good job on, you know, making sure, you know, we learned the stuff. And I play at the River Durham now. The pastor is Bishop Gabi. I played at Word of Commerce. I've also played, I forgot to mention some of the gospel artists too. J.J. Harrison, Tasha Page Lockhart, Dion Kipping, Todd Garbuff. I've done a lot with them. And like I said, I just got off tour with Machine Gun Kelly and Ian Dior, and that was a crazy experience. We did the whole U.S. and then we went overseas for a month. and did Germany and the UK. Italy, Paris. That was
Prague.
Yeah, Prague. That was a very crazy experience. And I'll tell you why, because they live way different over there. Not too much different, but I mean, just from the food, just the culture. It's not too many, of our culture over there. So being over there for a month was pretty hard. I've been to Africa. I did Africa for a week. Yeah, I did Africa for a week, and I got crazy homesick over there. But being overseas for a whole month was just really, really something. You had to stay prayed up because, like I say, I go back to different energies and stuff like that. It's a whole different energy over there. Like one of the venues that we played in, Hitler did his speeches there. You know what I'm saying? So, and I'm walking, looking for the green room, and it's getting dark on the hall. So I know I'm going the wrong way. And they was like, yo, where you going? And I was like, I was trying to find our green room. They was like, you walking towards the gas chambers.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's where that's where they burn the people at. You know what I'm saying? Like where they'll make the people think they're taking showers and they're actually throwing acid on them. So just to experience that, like you could feel the energy. That was one venue, and I was another venue in Prague, where we was in Prague. Those two venues, to me, like you can just feel it. I walked from my hotel to McDonald's at night, and I walked down an alley. It was just crazy people. Like whatever you can imagine or whatever you think you may see, like, yeah, it was out there. And that's just how it is, That's where church comes in. That like, as long as you saved and you got the word in you, what you worried for.
So why, with all the success that you've had, going overseas, all of that, why do you still play at churches?
That's where I started at, like that's what got me to where I am today. Just the mindset and the word and, being around people that can mold you up. Because I feel like if I didn't grow up in church, I'd be a whole nother person, And I feel like if I didn't have a musical family that, instilled certain stuff in me, like my grandpa, I wouldn't, it'd be a whole different story. And I feel like it's always good to go on the road and have a church to come back to just to get your mind right. Because like I say, you away from church for so many months. You away from church for 2 months or 3 months or however, you out there around all of that. So you kind of want to come back and just restore your mind and rebuild and just reset, so.